Welcome back to another programming video. Today's topic, reading and writing text files. This time around, we will be focusing on reading from a file. The chapter that we are under is file handling. Now, this is the layout for today's video. And like I said, we are focusing on reading from a file. And in our previous video, we look at how to write to a file. I will be using the built-in function open as always, and the keyword width, which allows us to allow Python to handle any error that may occur during the reading of the file or writing to a file at this time, this stage in time. So, and there will be a video for error handling in the next 6 sections. But for today, we are not wanting to deal with anything that has to do with errors. If it does happen, we'll see how we can handle that under this section. Now, trying to keep the videos as simple as possible, allowing you, the viewer, to kind of get just enough to be able to build your knowledge or seek a path that suits you. And also under these reading modes, we are going to use, obviously, we're going to use a reading mode, and that's going to be our letter R. On top of this, there are 3 different file methods that I'll be using, and I think they're going to be very useful. So it's good that I just highlight them. They may be more than this, but I think these ones are the most common ones in my view. So the first one is read, which allows us to read the whole file as a one string, no line by line whatsoever. Just give me the whole thing. There are use cases for that. You just have to be aware of maybe things like the size of the file, or maybe it might be too much to read. You may want to consider something where you can maybe read the first 10 lines or the last 4 lines, or maybe based on the size of information, and then proceed that way, whatever the scenario may be. Then you have your read lines with an S at the end, which allow you to read the whole file once again, but then instead of getting the one string, you're actually getting a list of strings, 1 per line. So each line in your file will represent a value within the list, which is cool because sometimes you may want to do some post-processing depending on what the scenario is. One from the top of my head I can think of is maybe NLP, where you see a whole lot of this being used behind the scene, and that's just something also to keep in mind. Then you have your read line, and this allows you to just read the first line, the next line basically, and we'll run a scenario right at the bottom here where you can see how those can be used. So while we're on that, I also just want to highlight that this was the example that we use in our previous video, at the exception that this time around I'm passing in a content, and you see that my content is formatted in a following fashion using the /n, which simply means new line. That's the equivalent of your enter on your keyboard if you want a new line. So there I'm just passing it in and I'm writing it down. And another piece of information also that's worth knowing is that this value file is random. So it's you choosing what value you want to give it. It's a variable, and when you're writing this this line of code, this variable has a type text IO wrapper. I'm not going to explain what that is. That's just good information to know. And Python assigns it a list of methods, which is what you can see we're able to access once that's been done. So think of this whole thing as a telephone line. You see, in first thing you dial a number, and the operator, wherever it happens to be, does a connection behind the scene, and once that's connected, you hear someone speaking, and you know that conversation or that connection is ready for transfer of words or media, whatever it is. And once you transfer it or written or pass whatever it is you want to pass over that connection, then you close it, you hang up. So that's in a nutshell what's basically happening here. I hope I use an example that makes sense, but and that's, I'm just trying to explain the analogy behind this whole process, and with help us handle any error that may occur behind the scene, and we don't have to worry about that at the stage. Cool. So that is a file. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna run this, and you'll notice that my folder currently does not have any notes.txt. And let's run the code, and I have that, and you can see note is now been printed. And then if I print the output, you can see I have first, second, third, and all of them are in a new line. Nice and neat. Now we don't need this anymore, so we're gonna move on to the next part. And this one, we basically covering the first method, and the reading mode is R, and the file name is the following. Now, something about the file name, this is a path, and it could be something located further down in the nested folder, whatever it is. But because I'm running, this module is running from the same location as where the file is located, therefore I can just pass the name as is, and Python will know what to do. Now, I'm going to be using the read method where we are reading the whole file, and we are basically outputting the content as is, and nothing else to be processed. So I'm going to clear my console here, run the code one more time, and you can see that it's reading the file, and from the variable we're able to pull in the method read, open close bracket, and then assign that content to our content variable, and then print the content as is. And that's what you're able to see right here with the same format. So, and maybe the question you may ask is, why doesn't it show this this /n? And that's because Python interpreted behind the scene, it doesn't show it, but you can see the kind of the manifestation of that new line. So it even though it doesn't print it, Python read the character and is able to tell that this is not something worth displaying, but just adding it here, which is going to be a different thing when we run the next section of our code. Now, let's move on to read lines, which is going to be this part. I'm going to clear my console. And you can see this time around that we are using read lines, and read lines basically read the whole file, but then we are getting a list of items, and each item represent each line within the file. So if you have 1,000, 10,000, 4,000, whatever the number is, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that long list. Yes, there are scenarios for this kind of implementation. And let's just run it and see what we get. So now you can see that each line is now being printed inside the a list. And how we know it's a list, you can see the square bracket and comma separated for each item. Now, unlike the first output that we got, where the letter N is not, or /n, short for new line, is not displayed, in the second code that we're running, we can see that Python actually includes that formatting, which is cool because you can think of a document that you're getting that has certain positions on each line or things like that. And maybe if you have to put it in a list and then maybe rebuild later on, ideally you want to have the same configurations in terms of text or formatting that you got originally, so as maybe not to break the flow, or maybe not to disturb something, or maybe keep context, whatever it is. So this is a cool thing, and it's also good to keep in mind that this will happen, so that maybe if you're not interested in the formatting, you may want to do some post-processing using some tools available before delivering the text to whatever platform or user needs it. So that's something cool to keep in mind. Now, the other thing also that you can pass as a parameter to readline is the maximum size in bytes that you want Python to give you back. So what I mean is, if you say, for example, a size of 1 byte, so what Python does is it reads, goes through the file. As soon as it reaches that 1 byte size information, it stops and it returns that. So for example, if I run this, then hopefully we can get that working. You can see that this represents basically 1 byte of information, and Python stops and it just output that. So let's see if we say 4 byte, would that give us the whole thing? Oh yes, it gives us still 4 bytes, so it gives us only the first one. So I'm assuming maybe you may have to increase this to something maybe bigger. Let's see, maybe 300. Gives 300. Let's see what comes out. Oh yeah, 300 is enough to get the whole entire information. How about 100? Let's give it 100 and see how much byte information we can get out of this. So, oh, so far more. So let's say maybe 50 bytes. Interesting. Oh, so far more. So let's try. Let's give it a 30 byte. Let's see if that's gonna be enough. Oh, so far more. How about the 10 byte? Is that gonna be enough? Oh yes, 10 bytes. So we can kind of assume that half of it is gonna be around about 20 bytes. So that's what I mean by the maximum size in the format of as an integer that you can pass into limit. So there's a scenario where you or whatever other platform needs in terms of information has a limit, and you always want to be within that limit or that range, and maybe cater for within your code of a way of continuing where you stop in terms of data, and then keeps on sending batches of 10 bytes information. So that's a cool thing to kind of know. So I'm gonna remove the byte size, and then we're gonna do the last one right here, which is basically our last one, and then we're reading lines. So first of all, I'm gonna remove this value over here. So this one allows us to only read the first line from our text file, which is going to be this one over here. So if I run this code, you can see I'm only getting notes over here. So now, unlike the read lines where we can pass the actual size of the information that we want to retrieve in terms of bytes, this one allows us to pass the maximum characters for that line that we're reading. So in this case, if I look at first note, for example, it returns everything if I'm not passing any limits. So that first line of information will be passed. And let's say if we count 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me say I'm only interested in first. So I'm going to pass in 4 here and clear my console again. And then if I run the code, you can see I'm only getting that. And if we go back to our little guy over here and pass 10, what do we get? We run our code once again. You can see we're getting 10 bytes of information, our full list, and we're getting first and on the limit of 4 characters for the first line of our file. All right, that's enough for today. I hope you've learned something new in terms of reading from a file. Until next time, keep well. Bye-bye.